My Lord and my God, I firmly believe that you are here, that you see me, that you hear me. I adore you with profound reverence. I ask you for pardon of my sins and grace to make this time of prayer fruitful. My Immaculate Mother, Our Lady of Lourdes, Saint Joseph, my Father and Lord, my guardian angel, intercede for me. Jesus, I'm sure you'll be happy if I start this time of prayer wishing Mary, your mother, and also my mother, a very happy feast. Yes, it's the feast of Our Lady of Lourdes. Every Saturday, in some way, is a little feast of Mary. Catholics world over honor Mary on Saturdays. Usually, when I wake up on a Saturday, one of the first things I like to do is to recite, well, as best as I can, because my head is usually in a blur at the time when I wake up, is to recite the Hail Holy Queen, Mother of Mercy. And we continue, turn then, most gracious Advocate, your eyes of mercy towards us, your eyes of mercy towards me. Eyes of mercy of Mary. There's so much in a mother's gaze. A little child in his or mother's arms stares straight into the mother's eyes. That's how you, Jesus, would grow up as a little child, staring into those eyes of mercy of your mother, learning also how to gaze upon others with eyes of mercy. This is what has drawn my attention today in reading the Gospel that is taken from Mark chapter 8. In those days, when there again was a great crowd without anything to eat, Jesus summoned the disciples and said, "My heart is moved with pity for the crowd, because they've been with me now for 3 days, and they have nothing to eat." My guess is that the crowd hungered for you in the first place, Lord. They hungered for truth. Listening to you was everything. After you spoke, they wanted to know more. Maybe that's why they stayed on another day, and then another, and a third. Jesus, I also hunger for you. That's why I've made some time to pray in whatever circumstances I find myself in right now. After 3 days, they didn't have anything to eat. The disciples were also there with you, but it is your eyes of mercy that notice that each of those people were hungry. The expression on their faces said it all. And you told the disciples, my heart is moved with pity for the crowd. If I send them away hungry to their homes, they will collapse on the way. Jesus, are you using hyperbole here? Or trying to draw the attention of your disciples? Guys, take a look at them. They're famished. Hint, hint. Why don't we do something about this? And the disciples, still growing in friendship with you, as I'm also growing in friendship with you, Jesus, don't really get that hint. On the one hand, they didn't even remember the miracle that you, Jesus, had worked some time ago. We read about it in Mark chapter 6. 5 loaves and 2 fish. You had fed 5,000 people. How quick they are to forget the great things you had done in their presence. Do I also forget the great things you have done in my life? On the other hand, the disciples were probably as tired as the people who had been there for 3 days. And they maybe just want everyone to get lost, Hence their dissuasive stance. Where can anyone get enough bread to satisfy them here in this deserted place? It's impossible. In any case, we're too tired to care about the others. Too tired to care about the others? That's when you ask, how many loaves do you have? Turning to the disciples. When they replied 7, I can almost imagine them looking at one another and even kind of gesticulating amongst themselves. We have only 7, and the 7 are for us because we are tired. Tell them to go home. Jesus, left to my own devices, I sometimes just get so self-absorbed, to use an expression of Pope Francis, that I'm not able to look beyond my own needs, my own concerns, my own whims, my own laziness. In this case, the disciples couldn't look beyond their own hunger, tiredness. But that's not you, Jesus. You were tired after all. You were the one who had been preaching, probably standing up and addressing the crowd of 4,000 people. But it wasn't just a multitude for you. You looked at each one of them. Your eyes of mercy gazed at each one of those men and women and children. I know that those same eyes of mercy gaze on me now in my prayer, even though I'm one of the many sprinkled around the globe listening to you in this podcast. And even though you are tired, you go about telling the people to sit down. Another act of service. Instead of telling the disciples to do it, you do it. You offer yourself. Because you saw with your eyes of mercy that the disciples were tired. Then, taking the 7 loaves, he gave thanks, broke them, and gave them to his disciples to distribute. And they distributed them to the crowd. You turn to them. Come on, guys, it's your turn now. You've been resting. And the disciples start out and meet people one by one and see for themselves that the people were suffering. Until then, they had been self-absorbed. Now they look people in the faces. They understand that even though they are tired, it is no excuse to look inward, which usually just brings sorrow, but to look out, to look up at. Jesus, may I learn to look at people with eyes of mercy, to see what they hunger for. And this friendship that we are building in these moments of prayer with you, Jesus, are what liberate me from my narrowness and self-absorption. Pope Francis says in Evangelii Gaudium, we become fully human when we become more than human, when we let God bring us beyond ourselves in order to attain the fullest truth of our being. We are liberated from our narrowness and self-absorption. How can we fail to share that love with others? The love that I have received, the love that you have received. Well, these words of Pope Francis come to life with his own example. He is 86 years old and recently returned from an apostolic trip to the Democratic Republic of Congo and South Sudan. Isn't that tiring? It's like a 7-hour flight, 8-hour flight going there, but then it's being with people the whole day. And you might even want to check some of the clips of the Pope's visit. He was with the multitudes, just like you, Jesus. With the multitudes, and he's not even able to walk. He has to use a wheelchair. What would move a man who's 86 years old to make these trips? He has a heart like yours, Jesus, and eyes of mercy that see that the people hunger, that see the sufferings of others above his own, which are many. And he understands that he's called to feed them. Help me to understand, Lord, to have those eyes of mercy that look at people. Mary, my mother, through your intercession, help me to look up at the people I come across today. Do I stay with my parents? How often do I look up from what I'm doing, or look up from my phone and realize that Mom or Dad have had a rough day? Can I give a hand? Can I offer to help prepare dinner? I see that some of my friends hunger for happiness, but they're looking in the wrong place, hungering on the phone, scrolling interminably. That's not happiness. And they're hungering for you. What can I do for them? Help me out of my comfort zone, Jesus, to go out, to sit down, to speak, to explain. through my friendship, to encourage. The miracle of the multiplication of loaves is accompanied by a hidden miracle, and it is that the disciples learn from you, Jesus, to look beyond themselves, to be freed from their self-absorption, and to gaze at others with eyes of mercy, and go beyond themselves to share your love with others. Mary, my mother, Our Lady of Lourdes, help me to look with eyes of mercy at all those around me and to reach out to them. I thank you, my God, for the good resolutions, affections, and inspirations that you have communicated to me in this meditation. I ask you for help to put them into effect. My Mother Immaculate, Saint Joseph, my Father and Lord, my guardian angel, intercede for me.